So I fell down a rabbit hole the other day, and basically what I discovered was people are taking trucks like my 2007 and going quite a ways back, probably to 2003, 2002, somewhere, I'm not sure where. And what I found was people had found a way that on these trucks, they were able to engage what is called too low mode. Now this truck, being a 2007 with the manual shift floor, came with an NP261 manual floor shifter. So if you take a look, just got to get a light here. So you can see that based off the floor shifter, we got 4 low, 2 high, and 4 high, like many GM trucks of this generation. And if I turn the key on my truck, so right now, you'll notice that my truck is in 2 high. And if I move that, I won't be stubborn. Give me a minute. Truck is being stubborn. I must be sitting at just a place where the transfer case must be in between gears. So I'm gonna just start it here for a second and see if I can get it to go into 4 high. Well, she's definitely in 4 high now. Must have been sitting in a weird spot. Truck's being a little funky there, so I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, anyways, we'll try this again. Now, truck is in 2 high. And if I put the truck into 4 low, you can see right here that the 4-wheel drive indicator is on. Right there. So there's 2 high, we're neutral, and now we're in 4 high. And when we do that, basically what's happening is there's an actuator that's on the front axle over on the passenger side, and that's what locks the 2 fronts together. Now, what I've been finding is that what basically people have been doing is under the hood on these trucks, on the driver's side, at this side, is your 4-wheel drive connector. It's on this truck, it's 4 wires. You got a black, white, a blue, a brown. Sorry, you got a black for ground, a blue and white for the accumulator or the actuator. Don't know why I keep saying accumulator, actuator. Brown wire, which is always 12 volts, and a black and white wire, which is basically a signal to the truck to tell it that it's in 4-wheel drive, change the shift points, and let ABS know what it's supposed to do. So if you listen when I disconnect the blue, just give me a second here. So if I disconnect the blue, you can hear that actuator engaging or disengaging. And basically what's happening is, because it's in a 4-wheel drive mode right now, when you separate, or basically because it's in 4-wheel drive and the key is on, when the transfer case is in 4 high or 4 low, it grounds and sends a signal to this wire. So right now, if we look at the dash again, you'll see it says it's in 4-wheel drive. And if I turn my flashlight on, you'll see that it is in 4 high. So if you come under here and we disconnect this blue wire, we are now no longer technically in 4-wheel drive because the actuator is disconnected. And what will happen is, if we come into the truck, you will see that there's no 4-wheel drive light. So why is that important? Well, as I just said a second ago, what has to happen is you can take that wire and remove it, or put his brake in it using a switch, cutting it, whatever you want to do, and the actuator is no longer engaged, so the front end of the truck doesn't work. So essentially it's only the back tires which will be turning. How can we fool the truck to think that the actuator is engaged, but yet it's not, and have the truck think it's in 4-wheel drive to give you proper shift points, and to give you proper ABS function. Well, this is where this comes in now. So this brown wire is basically 12 volt hot at all times when the ignition is on. And the black and white wire is your signal wire for the truck to know that it's in four-wheel drive or not. And all that happens is when the actuator is engaged, it sends that out. It tells the truck, hey, I'm engaged. And then it will basically apply 12 volts to this wire so that the system knows what its function is. So if we tap into the brown wire and to the black and white wire, and we go look at the dash, you can see the four-wheel drive light is on, and you can see I'm still in four-wheel drive. So now, essentially, this truck knows that or I should say, this truck thinks it's in four-wheel drive, but really it's not. So what have we done? Well, we have now fooled the truck into thinking it's in four-wheel drive and four low, but if I was to take the truck out and drive right now, even though it's in four high, only the back tires are going to turn. Well, I shouldn't say turn because obviously the drive shaft is going to turn them. But let's rephrase this. If you were to lift the truck up in the air, say you had a lift, or you put it on 4 jack stands and got it up off the ground, turn it on, put it in drive, you would only have your back tires turning, your front tires would not. Same thing applies in 4 low. Your back tires will be turning, your front tires will not. So why do you want that? Well, funsies, I guess. Or maybe you want to be driving down the road and only have, your 4 low option for the rear tires. Or maybe you want a 2 low option, because essentially that's what this is doing, is it's giving you a 2 low instead of a 4 low. So this transfer case is a 276-1, I think it is. So when it's in 4 low and the actuator is disengaged and the back tires are turning, this truck essentially is turning the back at 272-1, not the 1-to-1 ratio. So how do we do this and do it in a way that it can be controlled from the cab and allow you to run the front disengaged while the truck is still thinking it's in 4-wheel drive? I'll show you how to do that. But before we do that, I'm gonna have to set everything back to normal, and then I will take you to my lab and I'll show you what the plan is for all of that. I figured if my blabbering in my last video confused some people, I would do up some diagrams and some schematics to kind of show you guys what my plan is. I don't know if it was obvious in the previous clip, but one of the things that I did was I went out to a junkyard and I bought the male and female ends from the truck itself. So that way I basically can have a jumper harness between the 2 plugs. So again, that I'm not cutting into stock wiring. Now, to give you an idea of what I was talking about, here's a general picture of the truck in what I consider 2-wheel drive mode. And you can basically see that all 4 wires I would call are in what I would consider like a straight through mode. No bypassing, no jumpers or hot wires or anything like that. Then when the truck is in 4-wheel drive mode, what basically happens is this is the black white wire, this is the brown wire, and that was where I was showing the jumper, and that's what this is here, is that when you put it into 4-wheel drive, the brown connects to the black white, which is what makes the truck think that it's in 4-wheel drive mode and the systems like ABS and such can work properly. And then the blue gets connected to a ground, and then that's when the actuator will lock. And what we're trying to accomplish is something called 2-wheel drive low mode. And basically what we are trying to do is disconnect the blue from the black, but keep the brown and the black white together so that the truck knows what's going on electronically. So my plan is to use a couple of relays. So these are two 5-pins, but for this you only need a 5 and a 4. It was easy for me to just pick up two 5s, and then you just don't use the center pin on one of the 5s to make it a 4. So what my plan is that I will have a switch inside the truck. That switch will have a ground running through it to pin 85 on the 5-pin relay. 86 will be powered off the fuse box under the hood. Then you've got pin 30, 87A and 87, and pin 30 will be coming from the transfer case side into the relay, and then 87A and 87 will go back out to the actuator. And this is where you'll need the 5-pin. So basically what's going to happen is when you hit the switch in the truck, it switches 87A to 87. But if the switch is off over here, then basically this pin, this 30, runs into 87A and just goes to the actuator. And when that switch is closed, this is just a straight through, so the actuator will be like, oh hey, I'm good. So when you try and use, 4-wheel drive normal, then it'll work. But if you turn the switch on, what'll happen is it will move from this blue wire coming in will go from 87A to 87, and what that's going to do is it will break the connection. And when it breaks the connection, I think I made a mistake here in my diagram. The reason I seemed a little confused is because I forgot the intention of what 87A and 87 were to do. You can do this with a 4-pin relay, but you would have to find a 4-pin normally closed relay, so that when the 30 comes into that relay, it will just come out 87A on the 4-pin relay, and then when you apply voltage to it, then it'll break the relay. Because I went on Amazon to buy my relays, it was easier to just get two 5-pins, so that's what I ended up with. So that's why I'm doing a 5-pin relay, but it's also a little bit easier because on a 5-pin, when the blue comes in from the transfer case, when the switch is closed, open, when the switch is open and not turned on, 87A will just basically free flow this back to the actuator, so that if we need to use 4-wheel drive high, that function is there. And then if we want to use 2-wheel drive low and we turn the switch on, it turns 87A to 87, and 87 just becomes dead. It doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't do anything. And so that will break the connection for the blue wire, and the actuator won't engage. So that's why we need this like that. And that's for the blue wire. Now for the black and white wire, we're using a 4-pin relay, and this is where things are going to be a little different, because 86 is normally power coming in, 85 is normally ground, but instead what we're going to do is we are going to make jumper wires that feed from 85 on the 5 to 85 on the 4, and same thing with 86. So 86 will be having a jumper from there over to 86 here, so that they share the same function, so that when I turn the switch on, it will ground this out, which then allows power from pin 30 to the black white wire, and fool the truck. And then just in case, I will be placing a diode on this one. It's because my plan with this is I'm going to feed directly off the black white to pin 87, and I don't want any issues when this whole setup is turned off for power coming back into the relay, so a diode will fix that. So that's basically the gist of it. The 85, 86 off the 5-pin, 30 will be also off the 5-pin because it will also be a jumpered power. So these three connections, 86, 30, and 85 will all come from the 5-pin relay for the blue wire, and then 87 will just output power back to the blue white with a diode on it. So that's my plans. What I'm going to do is get everything set up. you know, I've got my relays, solder pliers, iron terminals, wire, pigtails, got a switch, got my diode. So I got everything here. And what I'm going to do is start doing some of the basic wiring for this. I'm going to use 16 gauge for the power leads. I'm going to use, I got 16 gauge black around somewhere. I don't know where it wandered off to right now, for grounds. So what I'm going to do is I'll start doing some of the jumper wires, and as I'm kind of progressing, I'll bring you guys back just to kind of see what that progression is like. And then I've got, you know, a 12-volt power pack and a multimeter, so I can kind of show you what's going on with that as well. So going to find my 16 gauge black wire and start working on this. So now I have the power and grounds hooked up. So this gives you a better idea. So this will be my main ground coming in from the switch, which then feeds to the pin there, which then I have jumpered across over to here to this pin. So now when this circuit is complete, these two relays get turned on. And then for power, I got that pin there, jumper to pin 30, and jumper to this one, and then to my battery voltage, which will be in the fuse box under the hood of the truck. And what'll happen now, if I turn my power supply on, you'll hear the relays click. And if I take a voltage measurement, because this pin 30 right here is live, that means pin 87 will be live. So if I put my ground on and I do a pin, I go to, let's go to voltage, and I go to pin 87, you'll see I got 12 volts across there. And now that my power supply is turned off, I've got nothing there. And then on pin 87A, I've got nothing, and I've got nothing. And that's what I want, because this relay is going to be for the black-white wire. So I don't want anything on pin 87A, I only want it on pin 87. So this 5-pin is now what I'm referring to as being turned into a 4-pin relay. So when this one energizes, the only pin that'll be active on this one is the pin 87. 87A, I'm just gonna put a terminal on it, shrink wrap it, call it done. This one is my 5-pin. So basically with this one, now because my power is not on, I am only going to have continuity between pin 30 and, oh, let me put my thing back. You'll hear a beep here in a second. So pin 30 to pin 87A is continuity. When my power supply is on, and they got power, now pin 30 and 87 are continuity. So that's for the blue wire. So the blue wire is going to come in on pin 30 from the transfer case, and then it's going to come in and it's going to feed out of 87A, which will basically make the circuit complete, so that the blue wire will have power, will have continuity, I should say, for when I want to switch to 4-wheel drive, and the truck will function as normal. But then when I hit my switch inside the cab, that's where it will cut that pin off and then disconnect the actuator. But because this is hooked up over here, I will still get the power onto the black and white. So now that I've got my ground and power hooked up, now I have to continue doing the rest, which will be getting this harness hooked up to this relay so that it will all work together as a single unit. So once I've made some progress into that, I'll show you guys where I'm at with that one. Well, this is the big mess that I have, and this will be how I can show you that this is a functioning setup. Here's what we got. It's a mess. So we got black for ground, red for power. So this will be, this one here will be out to the fuse box. this one here has the diode, and this one will go to the black-white wire in the main harness. This is the blue wire which goes to the transfer case side. This is the blue wire over here which goes to the actuator side. And right now, you take a look. So I got my meter on continuity. I've got a pin in this plug for testing, and right now these two blue wires, because there's no power running to the system, has continuity. So what that means is that because the switch isn't on in the truck right now, the two blue wires flow, which means it's basically in a factory setup right now. This relay is not interrupting anything factory wise, so the truck knows no better. So now what I can do is I got my boost pack here, or my battery pack here again. So we will hook up my ground. And I will hook up power. And now, if I turn on my power, you will hear the relays click. If I ground out my multimeter here, you'll see that on the red wire coming up here, which would have the diode, which is the one that goes back to the harness for the black-white, put on volts, and 14 volts on that wire. So I got power coming out of there. And if I go back to continuity mode and I go between my blue wires, I have no continuity because that extra pin that this one isn't connected to no longer has power. And now if I check continuity, it's now got continuity. So basically this entire thing is now set up so that if I went out to my truck and I put my black to ground and I put my red to power, basically battery terminals right now, and I plugged in this harness, what I would find is that I can operate the four-wheel drive as normal because the truck looks at it and just thinks of this, there's no interrupts. But then if I toggle the switch, the truck still thinks that the system is intact properly, but it won't engage the actuator. So I'm going to tidy up all the wires. I'm going to tidy up all the wires. I have to make a small jumper off of this one because I want I can pull the pins off the relays, but I want this to be as much tear apart as possible. I technically should have put some connectors in here, but it's fine. I can just pull the pins if necessary. But I basically want this so that at the very minimum, I can undo these two plugs, take off a power, take off a ground, and this whole thing comes out and I can plug the truck back to normal if I need to. So just gonna clean this up, get one terminal put on here so that this can connect to that. And then basically it'll be truck testing time to make sure and see how it works. So we're now back out in the shop and I have everything set up. It's a bit of a mess. You can see the harness there, the four-wheel drive plug right here. That's the plug. You can see these odd wires coming off of it. So there's two blues, a red, and that other blue. And where that runs to is this two relay pack that I built up here. This fuse box under the bay has this little spot here, and I think it's going to fit perfectly for this relay. So these are those two blues from the plug down below, and the red wire here running down as well. This is the one that has the diode in it, and then here's our ground. And then I got a power running up over to here. Now, what this does is, so I can show you here, I'll do like an actual, I'll do a full-on example in a few minutes. So right now, if I turn the key on, and I don't know if you're able to hear it, but if you listen closely, you'll be able to hear the actuator. Actuator, that's 4 high, 2 high, 4 high. And what you'll notice now is you'll see that the 4-wheel drive light is on in 4 high. If I go to 2 high, it turns off. Now, what that relay does is if I take my ground here, that's going to that relay pack, and I ground it, you'll hear the relays click, and you'll see the 4-wheel drive light on. Unground it, it turns off. Ground it, turns on, and when it's on, you can see that I'm in 2 high. My shifter is way out of whack. I'll show you here just to prove it. So right now, we're in 2 high. We're now in 4 high. Lights on. 2 high, lights off. If I take my ground and ground my relays, light is on, and we're in 2 high. What I'm planning on doing is I will have a switch. I haven't decided quite where I want it, but I think right about here or right here, one of the 2 spots. I'll have to see where the most room is available. It feels like it's probably going to be on this side, so I might be able to do it in here, or I might do it down here on the side. I haven't decided, but basically it's wherever there's going to be the most room that I can to drill a hole to give it a spot to plug in. And then once I have that, then basically it's just a matter of pushing that button to engage the relays so that the truck thinks it's in 4-wheel drive, and it's not. So I'm going to finish this up, get that switch wired in, and then show you a demonstration. We are finishing this off. So you can see I've got the cover back on. Relays are underneath here, out of harm's way. I don't have the wires cleaned up, but everything is in here is good. The harness is right here. So I did find the connectors for this. So in the new year, I'll be making this all nice, clean up the wires. Come inside the truck. So you'll see here, I got them all cleaned up so you can easily see the markings. A switch here. So I did have to change some of the wiring on that. The wiring in this had the relays positive ground, or ground to trigger, and I wanted to use an illuminated switch, but illuminated switches don't work off of ground. They have to work off of 12 volts, so I had to change that. I did update my wiring diagrams, so I'll post those at the end of the video. As I was saying, it doesn't do anything for 2 high, because the transfer case in 4 high is basically 1-to-1, so it doesn't really make any difference for 4 high. The difference is in 4 low. It basically allows you to, like I was saying, disengage the front end, so you only have the back end to be used. So if I turn the key on, you can see up here there's no 4-wheel drive switch, and if I hit my switch to an on position, you can see the lights on. You can see the 4-wheel drive light is on, and if I turn it off then the light goes out. And basically what this is doing is just keeping the actuator in the front axle from opening and closing. So just to give you we'll give you a demonstration here. So I'm going to start my truck. Yeah, I got to change that pulley. So right now I'm going to put it in neutral. So we're neutral. I'm going to put my switch on, and you can see lights on. I'm going to go to 4 high or 4 low. So now I'm in 4 low, and if I put it in gear, you'll notice rear end will move, but I'm sitting. So if I go back to neutral, go back to neutral, turn off my switch, lights off. Now I'm in 4 low, lights on, and now I can drive. And now I just take it to 4 low. Back to 2 high, neutral, truck's off. So that's what it does. It allows you to run your rear tires in 4 low without the front to give you that 276 or 272 to 1 gear ratio. So that's pretty much all it does, and that's all it's good for. But you know, maybe sometimes in the winter time, if it's icy, snow, and you don't need you know, 4 low to get out of a position, but 2-wheel drive low will be helpful. That's where it work. Maybe you're climbing a steep hill and you just need a little bit of extra oomph. Could help there. Maybe you got a heavy trailer behind you, you're hauling equipment, a trailer or something like that, and you just need a little bit more to get going. You could use it there. There's lots of different places to use it. So didn't have to spend a lot of money. I had most of the parts. I bought the 2 relays, but most of the wiring and the terminals and all that I had, so it was just kind of pennies for me. So yeah, so hopefully, you know, if you're watching this, it's something that you may want to tackle. I didn't want to spend the $300 Canadian on this. I figured it could be done for much cheaper, and it was. And so I did it. So give it a shot. If you try it, if you do it, have any questions, you know, put a comment below. I'll feedback where I can. Other than that, it's the end of this one, and going to move on to the next thing that needs to be worked on in this truck. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one.